Scott Pianowski of Yahoo Sports joins us for our Bold Predictions extravaganza. Plus, we discuss player risk and we debate how to correctly price Adalberto Mondesi. Beat the Shift is next. Welcome to another episode of the Beat the Shift podcast. I am your host, Ariel Cohen, and with me as always is Ruvain Guy. How are you, Ruvain?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. It is opening day of baseball. We are finally here. How's your draft season, Ruvain?
Draft season went well, I hope. I mean, you can't go by the first day of the season, but, you got to, live with the good and bad. If you have Luis Castillo, you have to live with that. If you have Travis Shaw, you have to live with that also. So we'll see. It's a long season.
Yep. The Mets game got postponed and won't even be made up tomorrow, so we'll have to wait at least till Saturday for their opening day, which the Mets are always pretty good at. Yes. Well, we've got a great guest tonight from Yahoo Sports, Scott Pianowski. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, delighted to have you. FSWA award winner last year for Podcast of the Year. Phenomenal show you do. What's your secret to being so successful with it?
Well, I appreciate that. We did the show for 2 years. Unfortunately, we're not actually doing a show this year, but we're hoping to have a show back next year. But we were nominated both years, and we won one of the years, which, I mean, any of the shows that are nominated, you guys have been nominated, I believe, and the Baseball HQ pod is so good, and the work that Derek Van Riper is doing at The Athletic is excellent. The Sleeper in the Bus podcast is so good. It's all about just trying to have a good conversation and get as many interesting guests as you can get on your show. And what I would like to do on my show is do two things. One, I really want to tee up my guests for them to lean into the stuff that they were passionate about or they were knowledgeable, especially about, and let them talk. And one thing that I really took a lot of pride in is we always threw some lighthearted stuff in my shows, and we would do a silly draft at the end of the show that sometimes would be about sports, but sometimes it wasn't. I think one time we drafted holidays or days of the week or something. I mean, we just would let our hair down and be a little bit silly because this is all supposed to be fun. And that's why I'm, today, opening day, I got to tell you, it feels like a holiday to me. And opening day is always fun. And, I've lived in a northern climate for most of my life. So the spring is always, you're sick of the winter. You want to go outside. You want to start being active again. I know you're a softball player. I like to play golf. I'm looking forward to all that. But after the year we had last year with the COVID and with the baseball and the unrest with the labor situation, we weren't sure if there'd be a season. There were all these COVID cancellations, and it was a mess of a season. They got something together. It almost felt like an extended tournament to me. I don't mean to denigrate the Dodgers, who are an unbelievable team, and it's a shame we don't get to see what they might have done last year in a full season. But today, the Mets and Nationals aside, and I guess there was a rain out in Boston, but we get most of the teams in action, and we get to see our players play. And some guys did great, some guys didn't do so hot, and we'll try to keep our feet on the ground with that while still being open-minded to what sea changes may be. But I just, knowing that we're probably going to have 6 months of baseball and a quote-unquote regular season this year, it just feels invigorating to me. There are friends I know who are longtime fantasy baseball players who didn't play last year. They couldn't get into it. They couldn't get excited about it. They had other things to worry about. And I'm not saying we don't still have things to be concerned about. Everybody knows what's going on in the country right now. But I feel that the optimism that we have now that we didn't have 12 months ago, man, I needed it. I really needed a day or a month like this where we could all feel good about something and enjoy something collectively. Because that's really what it's all about, just trying to get some joy out of this game.
Yeah, 100%. I run the local softball. I run softball also, but I run my local little league where I live here out in West Hempstead, Long Island. By the way, look it up. West Hempstead has won the World Series, the Little League World Series, 2 years in the 1900s. You can check that out. But in any case, I didn't know if there's going to be a lot of interest going into the year because we didn't run a program last year, and are we going to have enough interest? I don't know. We have the most enrollment that I've had in 7 years that I've been running the league. People are just coming out in droves to play. They want to get out there. They want to do normalcy more than anything else. So I'm really looking forward to this year. And yes, it does feel like a holiday today. It's incredible. So we are going to have fun today. It's our bold predictions episode, so you can't get more fun than that. Maybe we'll have some easy predictions, maybe some really zany out there. We'll see what we come up with. But first, as always, we start with our strategy section. So we just finished the 2021 draft season, and just to review, what have you noticed, Scott, in draft? Like what kind of draft trends and special things that you've seen for the 2021 season?
I thought most of the draft pools I was in, most of the leagues I was in, prioritized pitching to a heavy degree that I hadn't seen before. And although I suspected before the draft season started that maybe people would be a little bit more laissez-faire about how they built their bullpens, I think there was a lot of proactivity to that too, to the point that the Hendrickses and the Chapmans and even the second tier closers. I mean, I thought if we had talked 2 months before the season started, and we talked about bullpens, I would have been like, oh, yeah, I love this value on Ryan Presley. I can see myself getting a lot of him where it seems like he's slotted right now. And then the draft season came and went, and he moved up like a couple of rounds. And so I knew that I suspected that the starting pitching was going to be pushed up. But I think people were also thinking, I want to come out of, I thought Raisel Iglesias was another guy that, I really like the value on him. I can kind of take him at a price that isn't prohibitive. And then as the draft season went along, his ADP rose by a round or two. And it got to the point where I just didn't want to play that. So I was not as proactive chasing saves as a lot of other people were. Obviously, any strategy can work if you pick the right players. I did get involved in some of the brand name starting pitching. I was willing to take Jacob deGrom as early as 1 or 2 overall in a draft. And I think we might be in agreement on that. I know we're in one mock draft where Derek Hardy took him first. I believe you had the second pick. I had the third pick, or maybe I had that flip-flopped. I was ready to take deGrom, and he wasn't even there for me. But
right.
I think he's clearly the best pitcher to have, and with the expectation, I know it was kind of crazy that we didn't really know for sure until the season started that there wasn't going to be a DH, but it sure sounded like the National League wasn't going to have a DH, and I thought that was just the extra feather, the cherry on the top of the deGrom sundae. Anyway, long story short, I thought, as expected, starting pitching became more and more prioritized in the market, and I think the market also was very proactive to saves. I think maybe to its detriment. I didn't. We'll see how I did. I mean, I tried to build my bullpens on a budget. If I could get a solid closer, if I didn't think it was that expensive, I went for it. But I have, like a lot of people have, I have shares of Tampa Bay relievers or San Diego relievers or Kansas City relievers or Pittsburgh relievers, and I hope I landed on the right guys. I have a Jake Diekman share here or there. We'll see how hurt Rosenthal is. I tried to cobble together a lot of bullpens, and I was not out drafting Hendricks. I was not out drafting Chapman. I didn't draft Josh Hader, who looked unhittable today, which he often will look. If he's really going to be used as a dedicated closer for the Brewers, he looks like a fantastic pick. But those were my 2 strongest takeaways, is how people handled the pitching pool.
Right. Ruvain, anything to add?
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. A lot of second and third string relievers for possible closers were taken, but I think that has to do with the fact that a lot of players this year, that a lot of fantasy players are worried about the starting pitchers throwing more innings, how many innings they're going to throw. So they're willing to take more of a chance and more of a risk on these relievers as opposed to possibly the starters. Another thing I noticed is a lot of prospects were taken a lot earlier this year than prior years. Why is that? I think it's possibly because last year we saw a lot of the prospects get brought up very quickly, and people tend to forget that usually prospects don't get brought up as quickly. I mean, yes, they can be brought up 3-4 weeks into the season, but people are drafting them as if they're going to be in their starting lineups right away. And a third thing I noticed, and I think this goes with every year, the spring training effect. When a player does really well in spring training, if you're in a slow draft, those players seem to get picked up almost daily. If a player hits a home run during spring training, and all of a sudden that player will be picked in your draft or in your league that night, it's just very odd to notice that. I know, yes, these are still draftable players, but it just happened to always work out that way.
Yeah, no, interesting takes. And I agree with you, Ruvain, about the prospects. I did feel like, the Wander Francos and Kellenics, who've never played a game before in the major leagues, there's a couple more of those darts that were thrown earlier than in a typical year. Of course, you didn't really have a minor league year last year, so it makes sense. I agree with you, Scott, that the pitching was pushed up. I will say, though, that compared to NFBC, it was at about the same levels last year. What I think that is in the home leagues and other leagues it is now converging more towards the high money NFBC leagues. Like this stuff has already been going on. Speed pushed up in the NFBC. That has been going on. I didn't notice any difference from the last 2 years for NFBC leagues, but home leagues, pitching was pushed up a lot more. I did notice that.
Yeah, that it's possible that just the NFBC has set the baseline, and it's just going to be a kind of a slow, gradual effect before that becomes more of a mainstream thing where you might see in a public league, you might see in a home league. It's funny you guys mentioned the rookies. In non-keeper leagues, I am almost notorious for just ignoring rookies because I play in a couple of leagues where people love drafting young talent and they love hitting on a new player, a buzzy new toy, a shiny new toy, that I felt like the price would always be just so prohibitive. I'd never want to, I almost didn't even have to think about when I wanted to draft these guys. And I found myself, I actually drafted Kelnick, and I know it looks like Kelnick. I believe it's actually Kelnick, even though it looks like it should be 3 syllables. I actually drafted him on a couple teams this year, and one of them is a keeper league, one of them isn't. And that is something I never would have. The last 10 years, I probably haven't done that once in redraft, have maybe the buzziest rookie in all of baseball. Now, it's a little bit unusual, highly unusual, because, of course, 2020 was the strangest year of our lives. But there's no minor league track. We don't know what the development curve was for these guys because whatever they were doing was not recorded in most cases. There's no statistics to go by. So we can't say, okay, this player worked on this player got better at this, got worse at that. They were just basically out of sight, out of mind for a full season. So I thought it made it very unusual what to do with those players. And oddly enough with Kelnick, I suspect his timetable might have been sped up by the previous executive, going on in front of the Rotary Club and putting his foot in his mouth and admitting that they wanted to manipulate his service time. Now, of course, he's in the minors now anyway, Kelnick is. But it's just funny that if that never happened, maybe there wouldn't be this public pressure to get him into Seattle uniform quicker than there normally would be. We know the Mariners don't design themselves to be contenders this year, but I found myself more open to him than I would have been in previous years. If we were talking a year or two ago, 5 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, he's going to be a great player someday. I'm not going to go after him. I'm not going to target him. This year, I was a little bit open-minded to it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe there's just been too many rookies recently that have popped, and I've never had the Tatises. I've never been the guy. I didn't have Soto his rookie year. I mean, maybe I just wanted to be in on it once and just have a share in case it pops. But usually I think they're bad plays in redraft because somebody's going to draft them at their peak. Draft them with the expectation, as Reuven said, that they're going to be up with the team right away or really soon after opening day. And a lot of times that just isn't the case.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I play a lot like you. I rarely see a prospect come on my team in a redraft league. We're in a keeper league, Reuven and I, and only 10 teams, and we spent some money on Kelnick this year. It just felt right to do. It's an aberration of what's going on this year.
I gotta say this. I think he's going to be great someday. I think his floor might be Kyle Tucker. That's how much I'm in love with him as a prospect.
Yeah. Well, we're Mets fans, so we try to ignore him.
Sorry about that. Well, hey, you got something. Hey, you just signed. You got the Lindor thing. I'm so glad that isn't going to hang over us for the whole season, and it's just not going to be a talking point. And oh, God forbid he got off to like a 2 for 23 start or something. It's just nice that. I'm not a Mets fan. I'm a Jacob deGrom fan. I love their TV crew. I think it's the best in the business, and I'm going to watch every deGrom start this year. And a lot of times I'll just put their games on anyway because I love their announcers so much. But I don't enjoy talking about. I don't begrudge the players getting anything they can get, and I also understand the owners and the CEOs and the GMs have to run a business. I get it. It's a business. But I'm glad that that's solidified, and we can start talking about Lindor, the baseball player, and not how much money is he going to be making in 2031? I mean, I just want to talk about the fun stuff.
Right. You know that Gary Cohen is actually my uncle in real life, by the way.
Is he really?
No, it's April Fool's Day.
Oh, okay. I know Gary Cohen just a little bit. He of course is great at every sport. He's done Olympic hockey. He's done college basketball. Is he still the St. John's announcer? I know he was at one point.
He was.
Yeah, our paths briefly crossed. I'm sure he would not remember me, but when I was in college, he covered a couple of Providence College hockey games, and so I might have shared a word with him or two, and just he's so funny and witty, and obviously he's Ivy educated and everything. So I think he's about as good as you can get as an announcer.
But Ariel, I thought you told me Steve Cohen, the owner of the Mets, was your uncle.
Yeah, go for the money, Ariel. I mean, Gary's probably well off, but go for Steve, man. Then you can get that Lindor money. You know what? Go to Steve Cohen and say, I want Lindor plus $1 million. Do what Lindor did with Tatis. Play the Price is Right game.
There you go. $1. There you go. Want to talk about Adalberto Mondesi. First of all, Ruvain, what is the injury update with Mondesi?
Well, Mondesi, he has an injury, and they said he's going to be out for about a few weeks. They said, and the most recent